It's the Gig Stories podcast with me, Alex, and him in the attic as always.
It's only Chris. Hey,
It's not only you.
It's only
Well,
me.
It is only you. It's only you, but it's not just only you. It seems like a while since we've done this. For some reason, 2 weeks just seemed to be a long time.
Yeah.
And so Nick Hayward seems like a long time ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's just say we did promise you, listener, that Nick's episode was wonderful and beautiful. And you've proved that because it's very quickly becoming our most popular episode. So lots of love for Nick Hayward. I mean, I've got a crush on him. I don't know about you, Payne.
Well, I took great pleasure last night because I actually saw Clint Boone last night. And just to let him know that his number 2 slot that as second most popular guest on this show so far is absolutely under threat from Nick Hayward. I probably should rephrase that. It sounds a bit rude, but
I love that. It was a lovely episode though, and you know, I've seen some nice comments about it, and I'm glad people have enjoyed it. And speaking of past guests, I know this is a bit of a loose link here, but
that's what we like.
That's what we like here, and I'm king of that. I'll stretch anything. We have the sad news on Monday that Kendall Calling has cancelled, and you know, I've been part of Kendall Calling for a few years, along with this episode's guest as well. And so it was just really sad to see another festival having to back out. And what was really frustrating about this is the politics of it all, is that Andy and Ben admitted and had to tell everyone that they'd had zero contact from the government, never mind a little amount of support, zero. They've had zero support financially, verbally, and in a week where they would have had to have paid out, I think it was nearly £1.4 million to contractors, there was no guarantee or insurance that would cover them. Because I know some people saying, oh, it's a bit premature. Well, not when you're a few weeks away. So my heart goes out to them. And live music is happening in places. I mean, we had Download Festival, didn't we? Go ahead. And I mean, we've got 1 billion people cramming into stadiums to watch the football. So it's more sad news. But fingers crossed, here's my really stretch link, is that Johnny Calcy, wonderful guest, and his Doll Foundation are playing WOMAD. And that's still, at the moment, going ahead. And I've been invited to that to do some, you know, kids entertaining, family entertaining. So my festivals are disappearing quickly. Glastonbury, Kendall Calling. So I'm holding out for WOMAD and hopefully catching up with Johnny Calcy if it goes ahead. So
yeah, I mean, I suppose one thing would be if you do have tickets for any gigs that have been postponed or festivals that have been cancelled, if you can, hold on to them.
Please do,
because you know, it's a bit of a shocking time to be a gig promoter or a festival organizer. So the longer you can, well, if you can honor your tickets and just hang on till next year, then that's going to make all the difference.
Can I throw something random in here? And I'm not sure how much it's related, but I want to put it to you and to our listeners, actually. The music industry is obviously, as we know, is really suffering, and these bands have to make up for it. And I'm noticing already, even more so, that prices are going up and up because bands are having to make, not just because of downloads and lack of money from there, but let me just tell you something I was angry about. Billie Eilish, who we love and adore in this house. Okay. Now, I know she's huge megastar and gets all the money she should, and maybe more from things like Spotify and Apple Music. But get this, right? And this is related because our guest today gives a wonderful recommendation that when we all get out and about to local gigs and supporting smaller bands, that we try and buy a bit of merchandise to help them financially because they need it. They need it. Get this, Chris. Billie Eilish, I tried to get tickets for me and my daughter, or my wife and my daughter. That was a nightmare, trying to get tickets anyway. But then the tickets were over £100. And I'm like, oof. What? How can that happen? Here's the big one. And I want people to let me know if they've heard anything else like this. She released her official merchandise. And so I thought, you know what? I can't get Grace a ticket. Let's see if we can buy her a hoodie. Are you ready for this? The price of a Billie Eilish hoodie. Take a guess, Chris.
I'm gonna guess that it was more than the price of the ticket. Was it more than the price of the ticket?
Wowzers. I mean, that's an expensive hoodie. Yes, you're right. £180.
And 80, nearly double the price of the ticket.
180. 100. That's right. 180. £180 for a Billie Eilish hoodie. What has happened?
What's happened to us?
What's happened to the industry?
What have we become?
What's going on?
Oh my God, that's incredible.
If you are now a fan of any commercially successful artist, and I'm careful how I say that, because, you know, I like a lot of them. You know, I've said, I like Coldplay. I'm all right with that. It's literally, unless you are a very wealthy person, which I am not, it's impossible. You can never get through to get tickets anyway. Ticket prices are through the roof. I'll tell you what, I'll get a hoodie for my daughter. Oh, £180. £180.
That is unbelievable.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Oh my God.
If you're angry, please, please message Billie Eilish's social media, because I was just gutted.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But if you do go to a gig as well, if it's, you know, if it's not a stadium one, but if it's kind of one of these smaller ones, get in the gig, get down the front, and then get up the back, get to the merch stall.
Exactly. Buy a record, buy a tea towel, t-shirt, whatever they are, because they really need it. And I think we are going to lose so many artists if we don't get back to gigs very, very quickly. I think, yeah, they'll be disappearing, and that is heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah. Have we mentioned who this guest is? Have we actually mentioned?
Haven't.
We've just referred to him in the third person, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Now this guest, I fell in love with his voice many years ago when, I'll be honest, when I was a dad with little babies, because I would hear his voice on his early show on BBC Six Music, and what a voice. And then I was so lucky to meet him at when I was on CBeebies doing one of the Christmas pantos. He came along with his family, and we were very excited to meet each other, should we say. And I've stalked him ever since, and I hide in the bushes in his garden. So
not all the time.
No, I'm not stupid. It's only 5 nights.
You got to get to work and all that kind of stuff. You do put a few shifts in a week.
Absolutely. And bless him, he leaves a pot noodle on the doorstep for me, whether I want it or not. So, Mr. Christopher Hawkins, what a privilege to have him on. One of the voices.
Was a great chat.
Oh, it really was. One of the voices of Six Music. I really respect his views on music and his recommendations, and I've picked up quite a few bands from Chris on his show. It's a brilliant show, and I know not everyone is up early in the morning, so listen back to it on iPlayer. It is absolutely, God's honest truth, one of the best radio shows on the wireless. He became so popular and has increasing listening figures all the time. They slapped half hour on the end of his show. And he's just great. And he's also on, you can hear him on Radio 4, and he's got some wonderful podcasts as well. Really interesting stuff.
We'll mention his podcast at the end of this episode.
Absolutely.
Because he didn't mention it in his episode. I think because we recorded this a few weeks ago, didn't we?
Yeah,
Good
and I
few
think
weeks
it was still under wraps then. So yes, get yourself comfortable or get yourself jogging and in the ears and prepare yourself for a man who knows his music. If Chris Hawkins has never heard of them, they're probably not worth listening to. So here he is, the man with the beautiful voice. Not Chris Payne, although I do love that Scottish lilt young man.
That wee Scottish brogue.
You'll always be my wee favourite.
Oh, you'll have had your tea.
It's Chris Hawkins.
It's Chris Hawkins.
Hello and welcome, as always, to the Gig Stories podcast. No daft introductions from me this week because I just want to get stuck in, because I just want to hear our guest speak, because we have the most wonderful voice on radio. That is a fact. It's BBC Six Music's Chris Hawkins. Chris, how are you, lovely man?
I'm really good, thanks. Hi, guys.
Hello.
I've said this even before I ever met Chris Hawkins. I'd listen to you read out the menu at McDonald's, mate. And if I'm ever to receive bad news in my life, I want Chris Hawkins to tell it to me, because it'll just feel so nice.
Alex, I'll take the McDonald's voiceover gig if you know of a way in, and I'll happily bring any news to you.
Yeah.
Full fee.
Oh, hang on. Let me look into that. How you doing anyway? And how, I know it's a bit of a loaded question these days, but you doing good? You know, staying with it?
Yes, the radio has been a thing, hasn't it, for the whole of the pandemic, much talked about as an important part of a lot of people's lives, and I feel very privileged to have been in the position that I've been in, and it's been a journey for me, like it has for everyone listening, but it has felt like a responsibility to represent the thinking, the thoughts, to be a voice of what everyone's been waking up to, that uncertainty, and being real, and hopefully playing music on my show. I do a daily show on Six Music. It's in the morning, and my hope is always to play something on the show that will provide some form of distraction.
And do you feel like that's changed since the start of the lockdown? Do you feel like your attitude to the whole thing has changed since the start of the lockdown?
I think it's reinforced the reasons why I personally have always loved radio. I got into radio because as a kid, I was fascinated by the one-on-one medium, by the voice coming out of a speaker and talking to me. And I really believe that nothing has changed through the years, that radio remains a very personal one-on-one experience. And I think that at this time, a lot of people, you know, hold up at home on their own in a lot of cases. And I hope that, and from what people have told me, radio has provided some form of comfort, a sense of community, a family, if you like, and to have been a small part of the journey with people, as I say, has been nothing but a privilege.
I love that. And I want you to know that is true. What you're saying is true. From listeners, I want you to know that it has been important, and especially because of your timing over this past year, you have been one of the first voices I've heard getting up, having one earphone in as I'm downstairs sorting the kids out, and just to hear that voice, to hear that things are going to be okay, and sometimes to completely ignore it because that's what you want, just a normality, and hearing music has just been great, Chris.
It's been hard, Alex, too. You know, not as hard for me as it has for thousands, millions of people, but it's weird. But being a DJ, you know, you got to have stuff to talk about, and being a Six Music DJ, that's often about gigs, festivals, performances, and there haven't been any. And then there was nothing, and no one was doing anything. So I'd got nothing to talk about.
Wow, interesting. Yeah.
And listeners have got nothing to share. So there have been days when it has been sort of hands up. I don't know, let's just see how this goes and we'll work through it together. And the one great thing that Six Music offers is the best music on the radio. I truly believe that Six Music is the greatest radio station on the planet. And I love, there's nothing I love more than playing like a new band for the first time and introducing that band to an audience for the first time. But equally, there's a great thrill in playing something by an old band. You know, you might play a Roxy Music album track that someone's never heard before, and that means that they go and revisit that album. That's equally, you know, a thrilling part of the job.
Do you feel like it's a you mentioned the new bands. Do you feel like that's a responsibility that you have? Do you ever feel that on your shoulders, the pressure?
It's exciting. So in terms of kind of how it works, I get sent maybe between 50 and 100 new songs every week, and I think it's an important part of my job to listen to as many of those as is physically possible, partly out of duty, but mainly out of love, because I don't want one of the ones that I didn't listen to be the one that got away.
Yes.
I don't want the Mac to end up listening to that one that I didn't, and then he broke.
Are you actually aware of one that you didn't give attention to, and then you're like, oh no, that was this artist?
You blank it out.
It's probably for the best.
Good examples are getting on early with, for example, Sam Fender, Fontaines. They've both gone on to do amazing things. Celeste, Arlo Parks. It's brilliant being a part of a radio station where listeners are hungry for new music and they're kind of musically curious as well. So, for example, next week on the show, I'll play some Nitin Sawhney, and his new album, you know, it's a beautiful filmic thing. It's quite political. It's a big statement. And it's not your usual music radio fodder, but the audience is as hungry for that as it is for new music by, say, a new band like Shame.
Do you know what? Those bands that you mentioned there, I just thought, oh man, what I wouldn't give to have those four playing in my garden this weekend. Arlo Parks, Celeste, Sam Fender, Fontaines. See that? What a lineup.
Alex, I hate to break it to you, pandemic or not, that's not happening.
Come on. So are you, and I'm just going to say this caveat for everyone. I think all three of us on here, we just want to go forward safely. So let's just say that that's a given. You must be absolutely desperate to get out now to live gigs.
Yeah, I think more than ever, we've all got cabin fever, haven't we? Everybody has. I can't wait to be in a sweaty venue. You know, it's a great little venue, you know, close to all of our hearts, the three of us, Gorilla in Manchester. You know, I would just love, you know, we're talking now, it's 4:30 Friday afternoon. You know what it would be to be heading off to a boozer near there and then going to a gig, you know, spilling lager on the way from the bar into the crowd and seeing a rock and roll band. That's how I'd love to be spent.
I have been thinking about Gorilla recently, just because I've been thinking of the most chaotic, beautiful, ridiculous gigs that I've been to, and one of the most daft was Slaves at Gorilla, and it was just utter chaos, and I was photographing it, and obviously there's no photo pit in Gorilla, so I was just right in the middle of all that absolute nonsense, and at that point I was a little bit worried, not for me, not for my personal safety, but I was for my camera equipment, because the cans of Red Stripe were coming over my head and all that kind of stuff. And at the time I thought, oh God, I just want to get out of here, and then thought, no, it's all right, just do your job, get it done. And and the last couple of weeks I've just been thinking and looking back at the photos that I took and thought, God, I wish I was right there, right in the middle of all that absolute nonsense.
I had a night that I was thinking about in Manchester. It was a Friday night, and I'd gone to see a band, I don't know who it was, and I met a friend for a drink beforehand, and I'd intended to see this band, and the friend that I was with said, oh, let's go and see someone else, let's go to, say, for example, Gulliver's, and we dropped in and missed the band that we carried on doing, missed the band that he'd intended for us to see. We stayed in Gulliver's a while, missed the band at the castle that I wanted to see. Stopped at the bar and it just kept happening. We ended up not seeing any live music, but
and it was a great night out.
Yeah, you had the intention, the thought was there, and that's almost as good.
Do you know what, though? You've set up a question for me there, Chris. It is 4:30. The three of us, we're going into town now. We're having drinks, and we're going to our first gig in Gorilla. Who's it going to be?
Wow. Who is it for you?
Oh, don't do that. Oh, look at you. For me, if I'm being realistic, if I'm being realistic on the size of the venue, because otherwise I'd say Arlo Parks or Sam Fender. Genuinely, I just dying to see them. Probably a Prey. I just love those two boys, and they were great at Kendall Calling. Not last year, 2 years ago, and at Glastonbury. I just loving them. In fact, that was my last gig before lockdown as well. I was in the Deaf Institute. So that's me. No one wants to know who I'm taking us to see tonight. Who are you taking us to see tonight?
Well, I've got everything crossed that New Order will still play Heaton Park at the end of the summer. So what about New Order doing a warm-up show at Gorilla?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'd be up for that. Yeah. Yeah, so that kind of saves me thinking of one, because that would be pretty much. I just bought Stephen Morris's book, so I'm kind of in a New Order frame of mind at the moment. So yeah, I'll give you a lift. We are going to take you right back really quickly in our time machine, and about your journey to becoming a DJ. I know a couple of people who became DJs, and when they were growing up, they used to, you know, record the radio and put their own little links in and all that kind of stuff. Were you like that as a kid, or was it something that you kind of fell into?
Yeah, I mentioned that the fascination with the radio and that one-to-one thing. And yes, I was into music from a very early age, and you know, I'd go out and buy singles in Shrewsbury. I grew up in Shropshire and got work experience at Radio Shropshire. I guess I was 16. I remember my mum had to take me each day, and at the end of the 2 weeks, I just kept turning up at weekends. No one said not to, and there was no security at the time. So I just kept making teas and making myself as useful as I could on shows at weekends. And I think people just, or each one just assumed I was with someone else. And then that turned into paid work. And I did it a year out in America. I got a scholarship, this thing called the English Speaking Union. I got a scholarship to go to high school in America. And I spent a year there in Boston and started doing some college radio, and came back to go to university in Nottingham, and then started working at BBC Radio Nottingham. Some big people had been there, not least Simon Mayo, who I was a big fan of. And,
yes.
So whilst at university in Nottingham, I was working away at Radio Nottingham, trying to learn the trade really, and working at first as a producer, and then got my own show. And in fact, by my third year, I left two of my finals early to go and to present the Drive Time show, which I was doing by the end of my time at university. So I somehow scraped a 2-2 at university, and then stayed in Nottingham for another year. And actually, it was only then, I guess I was quite a late developer in terms of festivals. It was only then, after leaving uni, that I went to my first festivals. At V and Reading, and moved to London at the very end of the 90s, and started working at a station called GLR, which was this incredible station at Greater London Radio, where Chris Evans, Danny Baker, Chris Morris, Emma Freud, all these amazing presenters were all there. And I managed to get a gig there, and then Six Music launched, and it became the perfect place for me, because it combined my love of radio with my love of music. And I really do believe, without wishing to sound in any way conceited, you know, I believe that I have my dream job. I achieve my ambition and have my dream job. But there's the only hard part is that it's probably an hour earlier than I'd like it to be.
Yeah, no, I get that.
I love morning radio. You know, there's an amazing connection with the audience at that time of day. But when your alarm goes off at 3:42, and because every minute counts at that time of the morning, when that alarm goes off on a Monday morning at 3:42, that's tough. Really tough.
Oh man, but your listening figures are just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really understand that. It's just a guy talking in between songs, but the key is making sure each one of those songs counts, and I love it. I absolutely love it. Once I'm there, it's fine.
It's the 3:42. So where in that journey, because you said you went to you didn't go to your first festival till after uni, where did live gigs come into that? Were you going to gigs though before then?
Yeah. So my first ever gig was when I was like 15. Again, my mum used to take me. There was one big nightclub in Shrewsbury called Park Lane, and they did an under-14s night. And my first DJing was DJing at this under-14. So I was only 16 myself.
No way.
The DJ at Park Lane let me have a go, and so I started doing that for a while, and then after that I went to my first ever gig, which was Sister Sledge, and that was while I was like in the lower sixth, maybe. So, where would you go to a gig? If you tell me, growing up in North Shropshire, the nearest town was 5 miles away. You know, the nearest town. And I lived in a village where I was related to more than half of the population.
Hang on, I'm the Welsh one here.
Yeah, no, you'll be able to relate, Alex. My school, there were 33 children in my primary school, and genuinely 2/3 were my cousins. Seriously.
I love it. Well, I suppose, Chris, I was in the same kind of boat, because I'm from a small town in the Scottish borders, so I'm 45 miles away from the nearest city. Edinburgh was the closest place, so I didn't have anything. What do you do?
It feels, it feels like it was late to go to a gig, but yeah, it was Sister Sledge. It was this kind of weird party. You know where the Big Chill used to be? Do you remember the Big Chill Festival?
Yeah, the festival, yeah.
Yeah, it was there, in the grounds of where the Big Chill was, and it was Sister Sledge.
So all 200 of you from your town went to see it, then, did you? All you and your family, you all went.
I'm not even joking. I'm really not, And it's not that weird being married to your sister, when everyone's the same.
So the village got into 2 coaches and headed to the gig.
Things got a bit more normal once I was at university, and there were great moments. God, Bowie, whilst I was at Nottingham, Bowie came and played at Rock City. That was some special moment.
You got a ticket to see Bowie in Rock City?
Exactly, yeah. And that will always be, I'm guessing this question was coming. I may have preempted it, sorry, but yes, it was probably the best gig of my life.
Yeah. Well,
what? How did you get? Did you have to sell your nan for that ticket? How did you get that ticket?
My flatmate and I at the time queued up, got tickets. I was, as a kid, I was that kid at the Gay Meadow, the home of Shrewsbury Town, the mighty Shrewsbury Town.
Mighty, yes.
I was that kid that used to stand at the players' entrance, getting all the players' autographs, waiting at the team bus for the away team to arrive and getting photos and autographs. I was always the kid at the theatre stage door. I've got your autograph, Alex, before we knew one another from a TV show.
That's cool, that is.
You go from doing that as an excitable youngster, and then you go through a period where it's a bit embarrassing, but you sort of still want to get those autographs. And then now I'm very proud to ask everyone I interview to sign stuff for me. So that my only regret is not hanging out after that gig for Bowie to try and sort of, even if it hadn't been a photo or even an autograph, just to have caught sight of him in person, other than on stage, would have been a really special moment.
Oh my gosh. I mean, would that have even been possible? Do you know, I did something similar at the Academy in Manchester after a Nick Cave gig, and I waited, and I wanted him to sign my ticket. I thanked him and said, I don't know why I apologise, but got to rush off because I've got to go back to Cardiff because I'm from Wales. And he just said, I'm so sorry. And I was just like, that's brilliant. Thanks, Nick Cave. Wales loves you too. Chris Payne and I, we tell everyone, and regular listeners to the podcast will know that we both have scrapbooks and folders of ticket stubs because we are those kind of people. Do you have, in fact, have you still got your Sister Sledge ticket?
You know what? No, I don't. And I know from listening to you guys that yes, that you do. God knows why, because those autograph books are prized possessions of mine. But no, I don't have many of my early ticket stubs. And in more recent years, I'm very, very lucky to get asked to go to gigs or whatever. I don't get given tickets. I do keep stuff, but I probably, I sound like such an asshole, but I've got more...
No.
More wristbands and lanyards than I do tickets, and I do keep them. Yeah, I've got tons of stuff, and I've got so many band T-shirts. but draws and draws of them. And you know what I try to do, if I have been lucky enough to get on a guest list or whatever, I always try and buy some merch, you know, as a way of balancing the books a bit for any band.
That is great. That's really good.
I think it's the right thing to do, you know?
Yeah. Do you know what? We interviewed Sophie Williams, she's only 20 and she's from Cardiff. She's a journalist and she is writing for Guardian Music, NME. She's doing fantastic. And Chris and I are geeking out saying we've got our folders of ticket stubs, and she's there going, she doesn't just match that, Chris, right? She's like, oh, that's nothing. I screenshot on my phone my e-tickets, print them out and keep them in a scrapbook. And we were like, oh my gosh.
Next level.
That's honestly, well, yeah, we described her. She is the end of level boss of this kind of thing. But yeah, fair play to her.
I loved it. In fact, just tell me about a couple of standout gigs before you sort of became Chris Hawkins' DJ. Are there a couple that you remember?
Bowie being the obvious example.
And so that was, just remind me, you were in uni?
Yeah, at the end of uni, it was brilliant. You know, I think in the same year I saw Shed 7, who I know you're a fan of, and I'm a lifelong fan of too.
Bowie, then, I really want to know about that. Why was he playing Rock City? Was it a one-off, such a small venue like that?
Yeah, it was a warm-up show for a tour, and played some kind of weirder stuff, new stuff, but did do some classics. I seem to remember he came on stage, he was a bit late on, and he came on and said, sorry, I'm a bit late. Wanted to see the end of EastEnders.
And you just don't care, do you? Then you're like, that's all right, Dave. You carry on. You get through your set. I
remember also, around the same time going on a boys trip to Magaluf maybe, and I think I probably saw the Temptations in a hotel lobby or something like that. But I mean, you know, literally one guy who was once in the Temptations.
Yes,
course, you know?
Yes. Bless them. Quite a few of those Motown doing the rounds.
I love it. I used to play in a band, and we ended up. It was a ska band, and we were on a bill at Hyde Park, but it was not Hyde Park in London. It was Hyde Park in Hyde, and
in Manchester.
Yeah, but top of the bill. Top of the bill was the Drifters, and so we were speaking to the Drifters, and lovely for me, they said cracking brass section. I'm the sax, but I was the sax player, and they were like, oh, nice one, thank you. And I didn't recognise any of them, and I looked them up, and they were like Trigger's Broom. All of the members were maybe related to original members or had known them from, and there were nothing to do with the original Drifters. No, there's probably about 7 different Drifters. There's Drifters Official, Drifters US, you know, like the Beat or whatever. So
I think the three of us should start going out as the Beach Boys. Now, when you then, especially once you really settled into Six Music, were you conscious then, or self-conscious going to gigs, especially on sort of, you know, smaller bands, newer artists? Because did you feel, if they see me, there's going to be pressure on me to write a good review, talk about them?
Bit, yeah. Life did change quite a lot when Six Music started for me. Yeah, I mean, it's just that shared experience at a gig. I think it's leveling, isn't it? So I think everyone's there for one purpose, and that's to see the band. And I think that, you get given CDs by new bands. That's what I tell bands to do that. You know, if you're going to a gig, you're quite likely to see someone who might be able to change your future, because there could be a reviewer in the crowd, a radio guy, whatever, manager, A&R person, you know, be well armed. You know, I was lucky in 2002 when Six Music started. I went to Glastonbury, and it was the summer of Faithless doing one of their best ever shows, and I think a lot of people, certainly anyone that was there, would agree. It was one of the Glastonbury performances through the year, through the history of Glastonbury, and that became a kind of it was one of I don't think I've ever felt the way I did watching Faithless that night, and that was so, because that was right at the start of Six Music. God, I felt like, you know, just the most amazing I think I'd ever felt. I think, yeah, it was euphoric.
Do you remember it quite clearly? What was it about that sort of performance? I mean, were you a big Faithless fan anyway?
I was a Faithless fan before.
Yeah.
I was a mega Faithless fan after. It was just when everything went right. It was about the time of day, as in late evening, the sun just setting. It was about, I'd been to I was in Nottingham during Euro 96, and Nottingham was one of the host cities. Cool Britannia, Britpop was massive for me, but this was like a kind of next level thing. What Britpop all sort of, it fizzled out, didn't it? And Cool Britannia wasn't very cool anymore, and this was something completely different. It was, as I said, it was of the moment, and it was kind of unexpected too. I think even they would say that they had no idea quite what was going to go off, and it was that feeling that any music fan will find hard to put a finger on and describe, when you just lose yourself in a gig, and that you can probably tell the way I'm stuttering and stumbling even more than normal right now, thinking about how that was. That's what, hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes, where it just became, it was like otherworldly. I mean, I'm sounding overly dramatic, but it had that much of an impact on me.
No, I would say the same. Watching Radiohead play Tea in the Park 96, I think it was 95, 96. Can't remember. It was the Bends. It was towards the end of their Bends promotion, really, and it was exactly the same time, and lovely weather, and
the weather was amazing then too. Radiohead, Chris, that's interesting that you mentioned Radiohead, because I got Radiohead, but I was never I hadn't sort of got it the way that Radiohead fans had got them. And
right, interesting.
I went to see them in Cardiff, Hail to the Thief, at Cardiff Arena, and
no way, I was there.
That was my tipping point. I was like, now I get it.
Yeah.
Now I get it.
Well, I was an early adopter, really, because I saw them, they had just released, I'm not even sure if Pablo Honey had come out, but they supported James at the Barrowlands in 93, and I didn't really know. I think I knew Creep, but that was it. And so I got Pablo Honey and listened to that on loop, and then so I was waiting for the Bends to come out. And I think between then and OK Computer, and then I kind of fell out of love a little bit, and I don't know the more recent stuff. I kind of know the early stuff a lot better, but yeah, just round about 95, 96, the best band on the planet for me.
I stood at Glastonbury in 97 when they headlined, that famous one. I was there, and at the end I just cried. I don't mind saying that.
I do have a Creep story. So I was at V, and I'd gone with TV's Kate Garraway. The two of us were there for Radiohead headlining at Chelmsford, and there had been a rumour.
Was that 97 or 98?
Later.
Was it? Good
yeah.
grief.
And so we had guest passes. So we went and we were. But we were round in the obviously like a normal person. We were in the crowd for the Radiohead, and there'd been a rumor that they were going to play Creep, and they were like sort of 18 songs in, and it's not going to happen. And we jostled our way into a good spot. Like we were quite close to the front and quite central, and loved it. But they still hadn't done Creep. And then they finished, and then they did an encore, and they were like, and they was like, nah. So the last song in the encore, we were like, shall we try and get to the bar before it closes? So let's go. So we headed off to the bar, which was quite a long way away. At which
no.
We're ahead of you.
But yeah, we're the only two standing at the fucking bar as Radiohead played Creep for the first time in a decade.
Oh, God. Well, I kind of did a similar thing at the Etihad when they played there a couple of years back, and they played a couple of tunes and then realised didn't have drinks, so we went to the bar because we thought they're not going to play No Surprises this early. Standing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realise that. Yeah.
That was Old Trafford.
Old Trafford, sorry, yeah.
I'll never forgive my wife for dragging us away from the Stone Roses at Heaton Park as they were playing Resurrection. I mean,
what?
I had to go with her, though, didn't I? Because, we were in the middle of...
No, you didn't.
See you later, love. Make your own way home.
Yeah, you absolutely could have.
I should have.
That is brilliant.
Well, that's on my doorstep, and when they were playing those gigs, I knew that Resurrection was playing because the helicopters came over, and it felt like I mean, being in that in the park, because I didn't go to any of the gigs, but I did sit in the yard and listen to them for free. But the helicopters, it must have felt like Nam.
It was messy, wasn't it, Chris? That field was messy.
It was hilarious because obviously, anyone that knows Manchester, the gold circle there for that gig was bigger than the rest of the gig. The rest
It was.
Yeah, everyone was related to one of the Stone Roses for those gigs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. Right, we're going to take you through the quick fire round here, which never turns out to be quick at all, but I like that. So, who is your favourite band to see live? Who's your favourite live band? Because it's often different to who your favourite is on record, I find.
Yeah, it could be Arctic Monkeys, I think.
Oh.
Always exciting. The last time I saw them was for the Tranquility tour, and I loved that that was a concept album that, as was hoped, they mixed up the night with old stuff too. That will stick in my mind forever. I think Arctic Monkeys are always exciting. James, always brilliant. An absolute, brilliant live band. Charlatans, Doves. I'm so pleased to have them back.
What an album as well. What an album.
I know. Yeah, what a comeback.
I know. It's incredible. It's incredible.
You've already answered the next one, which was your best gig. So that was Bowie at Rock City.
Yeah, I think it was Bowie at Rock City, but I mean, Fleetwood Mac at Manchester Arena, albeit latter years Fleetwood Mac was pretty amazing. Stevie Wonder in Hyde Park was also quite a moment.
Oh wow, you went. That must have been fantastic. What's been your worst gig? And I'll let you interpret what worst means. It could be because you had, I don't know, a personal nightmare or it could be, because the band were just dire or something. What's your worst?
I feel lucky to say that I never, I can't, there's not one that always comes to mind when asked that question, when that conversation comes up in the pub. But there's been a fair few of these where, for example, I'm a fan of a relatively young band called Dirty Laces, and they asked me to host the night.
Yes,
we were playing, and Latham's, who I'm also a big fan of, were on first. So I did the usual warm-up sort of welcome. And because they'd asked me to do it on the night, I'd already had like 2 or 3 beers before I got to the venue. And so I introduced Latham in a very enthusiastic way. And then Paddy Considine's band, Riding the Low, were on next. And I was a little bit giddy about the fact that was Paddy Considine, like one of my favorite actors. And, I'm another 2 down by this point, but get through getting Paddy on and his band. And I have no memory of introducing the headliners I have no memory of introducing or watching Dirty Laces.
That's honest of you, and I appreciate that. I'm appreciating the honesty.
So I would say that the reason I can't remember other worst gigs is because for the aforementioned reason.
What's your favourite venue? Not everyone has a favourite venue, but if pushed, where would like to see?
Where would you say? Would it be somewhere in Wales or?
Because I've lived all over the place, I always say Club Ivo Bach in Cardiff. It was just a great venue, and I think there's a lot of nostalgia there. But I think my favourite venue is the Apollo in Manchester, and I don't know why. I just love it. But it depends what day you ask me. The Albert Hall in Manchester has also become incredible. Yeah. And I used to like the Astoria in London, but obviously it's not with us anymore.
Yeah, so I lived in London for a very long time, and the garage in Islington was walking distance from home.
Oh, wow.
So I spent a lot of time at gigs at the garage, and I really loved that venue, and the Astoria too. I remember seeing Amy Winehouse at the Astoria once, and it was a night when she was in terrific form. So that will always stand out.
Man.
Great memories of that evening. Yeah.
Oh well, I'd give anything to have been at that gig. That's incredible. Yeah. A lot of people mention the garage. Who else have you seen there that you remember?
I remember seeing Drums there once that really stands out for whatever reason. It was a bit like of a moment. But the very first time I went there was when I'd first moved to London. Bear in mind what I've said about where I grew up.
Yes, you were without your family.
a kid, Shropshire lad, lost in London, and I went to my first gig at the garage, and it was to see They Might Be Giants.
Oh wow, what a band!
I'd seen them previously at Connecticut College at their end of year party when I was in the States, when I was living there at school. And so I walked, and I was like, what, London was all new to me. I walked in and excited about seeing They Might Be Giants. And I was like, oh my God, that's, look over that, that's Jonathan Ross and Mark Lamar and Phil Jupiters. Oh my, and the streets are going to be paved with gold from here on, aren't they? It's like every time you went to a gig in London, Yeah. You see all the names.
I like that. And Chris Payne, I want you to acknowledge that I skirted over the fact that Chris Hawkins saw Amy Winehouse, and yet Chris Hawkins, I always bring this up and people will be bored of it, but Chris Payne chose to have another drink at the bar when he went to see Jamie Cullum and missed the support act, who he found out afterwards was Amy Winehouse.
No, Jamie Cullum introduced my wife and I.
Really?
What?
Wow.
Yeah.
You're not just going to leave that there. Go on.
We were friends with Jamie independently of one another, and we went to see Boy George. And I said, Jamie, can you introduce me to that Claire? And he did, and then we got married.
That night.
The only straight couple at a Boy George gig ended up getting married.
Absolutely. And he's a great performer, isn't he? Boy George live.
Phenomenal. I once did this great night in Liverpool where it was Boy George and Bernard Butler and Tim Burgess and Holly Cook, who I am a big fan of. They all sang with one another, and it was like nothing else. It was unreal. A really special night. And I've done a bit of stuff with Boy George through the years, and he's not only is he a great performer, you're right, but he is, he's a great guy, a really good guy, and as we all know, the stories are just incomparable.
Yeah.
Wow. He's phenomenal. He's phenomenal. Go on, Mr. Payne. Last question of the quickfire round.
So your best discovery, someone you knew nothing about until you saw them perform. So maybe you hadn't even heard them on record. You saw them live for the first time and went, oh.
Do you know what? God, I feel like I'm just playing to the crowd here. But Pagan's SOH, it's not that weird because Alex and I are friends and we share similar music tastes. So I was at Kendal calling, someone said, you've got to go and see this band. And I did. And it was like the most incredible energy on stage I'd experienced for a really long time. And I've ended up playing their music on the radio as a direct result of seeing them live on stage. And the great thing was they were really unfazed. I went and found them afterwards and they were like just buzzing from their performance. And they've been very cool about getting on the radio and stuff, and I want that band to go on to do big things. They deserve to.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it, when you see a band like that, especially a young band coming through who they're really giving it their all, and they are, ready to wow, and they are just it's so hard to even explain them to people. When people say to me, oh, how do you describe them? I'm like, I don't know. But it's such a nice feeling, isn't it, when you have that band. I've said this before as well. I stumbled across a band in Glastonbury, as you often do, don't you, in a small venue or tent somewhere, and it was Sundara Karma, and it was on their first EP, and I just was listening going, oh, these guys are great, and it's really exciting, isn't it? And like that, I don't think I'll ever lose that excitement of feeling the energy and the performance from someone that I know nothing about.
Yeah, and there's that even greater sense of jeopardy too when you know nothing about them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're in the final furlong now, because I know you're a busy man and you've got lots to do, but there's just a few questions. This is the if only. I'm really interested to hear this. Who do you really wish you could have seen live that it's no longer possible? So for me, I'll forever be gutted about not being able to see Prince. And who do you really want to see that you haven't yet, that you could, potentially see?
By the way, I'm not busy. I'm thirsty. So just.
Oh, is that what you're saying?
It is about to hit at recording time now, 5 p.m. Friday. I'm thirsty. Prince, yes, definitely Prince. Could have gone to, when he did those small shows and I didn't go, and I'm gutted.
So you didn't see him either?
No, and so Prince would definitely be up there. I would love to have seen the Smiths. Here's a bit more of a random one. I would love to have seen the House Martins. I am a fan of each of theirs, and they're a band that, oddly, you get that question, who would you like to see reform? Well, I actually would love the House Martins to reform, and annoyingly, they all get on really well, but there's just absolutely no chance of them reforming.
Yeah, exactly. Because I thought, I wonder if Paul and Mr. Slim down in Brighton, apparently they're all really good mates.
Yeah, they get on really well. It's not like the Smiths where Morrissey's an absolute dick, and why would they? These guys are friends, and there's something about what the House Martins did and that what they created that I'd love to have seen. That is a good show. That's a really good show.
That is a belter, Chris Hawkins. That's an absolute belter.
I've never seen the Rolling Stones, which feels a bit ridiculous, and that is still bucket list. I've never seen The Who either, but I have purposely brushed past Pete Townsend once so that I could say that I have kind of touched him. He was walking past and I leant sort of shouldered, so I rubbed sort of forearms with Pete Townsend. But
you've rubbed shoulders with Pete Townsend.
It would, exactly. So it would be kind of cool to see The Who, I think. And neither have I been to a Bruce Springsteen gig, and that's shameful, I think.
Yeah,
shameful.
I think we talked in a previous one about looking back at past lineups for big festivals and how it's never a good thing to do, because you'll see who you did see and who you could have seen who maybe became a lot bigger. And my one was I think at the same time that TerraVision were on, well, I was watching TerraVision, at the same time the Cocteau Twins were on. And I wasn't a big Cocteau Twins fan then. I am now. It's never a good idea to look back at old Glastonbury lineups or T in the Park lineups. Just don't do it. Don't do it. Don't look. It's the past.
Nirvana would have been amazing. I think, again, of the moment, that excitement, that timing. And my Wendy James story, I can't not just get this Wendy James story in. I once was on holiday in Spain, and I was a massive Transvision Vamp fan.
Yeah, we all were.
Mostly for one reason.
The music.
The brilliant indie pop music, that's right. The link from Nirvana to Wendy James being that Kurt Cobain obviously wore the Transvision Vamp t-shirt famously. Right. And I was staying in this hotel, found out the Transvision Vamp was staying there, and I followed Wendy James around the corridors and waited out, and then couldn't get her quickly enough to, as she went into her room, waited outside the door of her hotel room. I was pretty young, so it wasn't that weird. I was
22?
13, 14, and she eventually came out. I can picture the autograph that she signed for me, Wendy James with a heart around it, which is kind of her trademark autograph. And I got a photo of her, not with her. But here's the cool rub, is that I've actually, in the last 12 months, become friends with Wendy James from Transvision Vamp.
Wow. What? How has that happened?
It's happened like a bit like online dating. We were...
And I have no doubt that your wife Claire's going, love, knock yourself out.
Yeah, she completely, another roll the eyes. I like her new stuff, and I just think she had a big impact on a teenage me.
Well, in a similar way, I photographed having been a fan when they first came out in 1986, 87, the Primitives. It was the first album I properly bought, going to a big city and going to a record shop, and I bought Lovely. And so I didn't get to photograph them until about 3 years ago, and Tracy was just... Oh, and that was my equivalent, I think, the Primitives.
I love that crash in it, the Primitives. That big one.
Yeah, that whole album's great, really good.
We haven't really touched on, I guess, that whole period that we mentioned Britpop. There were a lot of great gigs during that time. Oasis a little later. I maybe have seen Oasis more than any other band through the years, I'm thinking.
What was your first Oasis gig?
It would have been Reading, and it was one where they fell out on stage, where they had a kind of a ruckus, and I have a feeling, I'm guessing that Noel probably left the stage. It was when there was a lot of that going on. I was once I was at Graceland,
What?
doing the tour of Graceland. I had tickets to see Oasis. I got last minute got tickets to see Oasis in Buffalo in New York. Now, look, picture your map of America here. So I get up the next morning with this German friend who I'd done this road trip with, who, by the way, only told me he hadn't got a driving license once we'd hired the desk. He said, I can't drive, Chris.
No.
Like, what, we're driving from Boston to New York to Atlanta to New Orleans to Tennessee to
days.
Now telling me this. So I think it's like 900 miles or something. We left at 5 a.m. and arrived at 9 p.m. to the news on the radio that Oasis had cancelled the gig.
No!
I told you, stuff happens.
Oh, that's gotta hurt.
Oh, and you've hated Oasis ever since.
Well, they will get back together, won't they?
Yeah, there's no doubt. There is no doubt in my mind they will get back together.
Yeah, but if they do, is there any point in seeing? If we go with Noel has said, I've given them the amount of money I want or I would need. I would helicopter in, play the gigs, helicopter out. There's no acquiesce then, is there? On that, it's not going to be the same, and it would just be.
Yeah, but the Oasis songs that Liam's doing at the moment in his live set, some of the best versions that I've heard. He's really his voice is really, really good at the moment. There was a patch where he wasn't quite there, but his voice is really maturing, and I think it's definitely going to happen at some point.
I do too.
We'll see on that. Chris, give Chris and I a recommendation on who we need to go and see live. Things are back to normal. Who is it that we need to go and see live that is, it's possible that we haven't?
On the basis that everyone will be touring, my big recommendation is go see everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Just don't say no.
I feel a bit for the festivals, for example, can only put on a certain number of bands. There will have been bands that were due to play last year that, will not just necessarily be carried forward. There'll be new bands taking their places. So I have the biggest sympathy for any musicians at this moment. I just hope that, like when you get, if you hurt yourself badly or you experience pain in some way, maybe emotionally, the human brain and body have this amazing way of blocking that. And time does heal in both senses. I hope that we will look back on this very bleak and dark time and feel like we came out the other side of it with the music industry back to where it was.
Oh man, I hope so.
Amen to that, absolutely. The last question we ask is about a piece of live music, either an album or a live track on an album, or a live video, maybe a YouTube performance that you keep going back to, that you can't get out of your head, can't get out of your ears. What would you suggest we go and listen to or watch?
Oh, the other time, by the way, very quickly, was when I went to see Estelle. She was like the big new thing, and it was a massively crowded gig at Islington Academy. I couldn't just, I want to just prove the point that stupid stuff happened. And
he's going back to the quickfire round.
So I'm going into Estelle, and I'm really excited, like everyone is, about seeing her for the first time on stage. And I'm not a tall guy, and I get stuck behind Rio Ferdinand. I saw nothing of that gig, and I mean, it was so rammed in there. It was like illegally rammed, so there was nowhere to turn. And you're like, of all of the people, not even a tall guy, he's a giant.
Yeah, and Chris, you know what? You could have just tapped his thigh and he'd gone down like a sack of
When you're with someone like that, at my height, you're almost only just above his waist. It's in answer to your question, stop making sense, Talking Heads every time.
What a bet. I bow down to that.
So it's the best concert film of all time, the best live show ever recorded, a band right at the top of their game, in the most incredible form, delivering a masterpiece. It's a work of art, and it makes me feel good. It gets me I watch it often before going out. It just gets me going. It makes me feel amazing.
Well, do you know what, Mr. Hawkins? I think we have only just scratched the surface. I feel like there is an episode 2 that we need to do with Mr. Chris Hawkins.
Can we? Because there's John Sim and New Order. There's that story. There's Kirsty McCall we haven't had time to talk about. And also the Scissor Sisters and Kylie in Trafalgar Square. So perhaps that's all for another time.
Okay. In fact, we'll do part 2 all together. So we'll actually sit in the presence of each other.
All right. Can I take that one step further and say, can we do it in a pub beer garden, maybe?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Without a doubt.
That is something to look forward to.
All right. We'll do it over 3 or 5 pints.
Chris Hawkins, the most beautiful voice on the radio. And if you've never met him, everyone, then form an orderly queue and I'll introduce you. He's wonderful. Chris, thank you so much.
Guys, by the way, I feel disingenuous. I have this terribly disingenuous voice, and it's really annoying. But I really, really love the podcast for how it just sounds like
he's lying. He's
really,
lying.
really,
I've always preferred Mary Ann Hobbs.
To be honest, mate, I only did this because I thought you were the curly haired one.
You missed him. He was episode 4. Thanks, Chris.
Chris Hawkins there. Fantastic.
Oh, wallop.
Yeah.
What a man.
Have it.
All I've got to say is David Bowie at Nottingham Rock City. That is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
What I wouldn't give to see Bowie play a venue like that. And well, to be honest, that venue, I don't know if you've been to Nottingham Rock City. It's got such good history. Oh, I'm very jealous, and I cry. I'm laughing again thinking about his story about his very first gig and how it was basically his whole family filled coach after coach in his village going to the gig. It was brilliant. And let us just remind you what we said before. Chris is so lovely, and as he says, gets to a lot of bands and goes to a lot of gigs free. And he always picks up merchandise. And if you're ever doubting that, check out his t-shirt collection. No one in this whole world has a band or artist t-shirt collection like Christopher Hawkins. It's crazy. In fact, I want to go to his house and see all the drawers. He's got loads of them. He must have hundreds, and he does. He's so good at supporting smaller artists. So just a reminder, our listening friends, when you get to gigs, if they're smaller bands and you can afford it, buy some merchandise as well.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a hoodie for 180 knicker.
Oh, still
sorry.
So angry about that.
Sorry, I should have warned you.
So angry.
Yeah.
What a joke. What a joke. £180.
Welcome to the Grumpy Old Men podcast.
It actually sounds like a joke, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Guess how much the Billie Eilish hoodie is? £180. What a punchline. No, it's £180. Oh, okay. Okay, then.
I think Alex's head is going to explode.
I will have to sell my daughter to try and raise money to buy her a hoodie. and then I'll have to sell the hoodie just to get it back or something. I don't know, because my wife will cry or something. I don't know.
So as I say, not £180 hoodie,
No.
but maybe a single. Maybe get a 7-inch or get a you get coasters. I've got a pair of everything socks.
Shut up.
No.
Great question. Best merchandise. Oh
Best
my gosh,
merch.
everyone. We want pictures of your favorite merchandise, please.
Oh yeah, I don't have my favorite one anymore.
Oh no.
But-
Oh no. What? Go on.
It was 1992 at the
Yes.
James acoustic tour. I got a wee pack of condoms.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
I'll
and
be
you could
honest.
get different ones. There was how was it for you? Come home,
Come home.
and I think this was just before the Laid album. I think it just said Laid as well. So
I don't want to say you're showing off, but you're showing off there. Is that good? I would show you, but I haven't got them anymore.
no, they went out of date.
They, they didn't make it to my 30th birthday.
No.
Oh, the tears of truth.
Yeah, they went out of date before they got to,
Anyway,
fulfill
before they
yeah.
left the flat.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
Oh, I don't even know.
Please. Oh, me. Oh, I've just been a little bit sick. Ah. You're gonna have to edit that. Oh, mate.
I'm just going to throw in, because this is a music pod. I don't care what your age or genre or whatever. The new James album is truly fabulous.
Yeah.
So put in your ears and have a listen. Anyway,
Podcast.
but also merchandise. Pictures, please.
Oh,
all
yeah,
of
yeah.
you. Send us pictures on our social media. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Gig Stories Pod. And you can email us as well at the usual email address.
info@gigstoriespodcast.com.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, I would love to see pictures of your favorite merchandise. Loads of merch.
I got a bit of merchandise a couple of weeks ago. I got one of Tim's
What?
Twitter listening parties. The
What did you get?
the mat for the record player.
Slip mat.
Slip mat, that's what it's called. Yeah, slip mat.
Oh,
Yeah, but
you?
I'm such an idiot because I got the slip mat and then I went down to the record player and had completely forgotten that it's actually a 7-inch record player that can play 12 inches. So if I put the slip mat on, nothing's going to work. I'm such an idiot.
Fringe.
Yeah,
Tim's fringe just flops all over the
flapping
place.
against the side of the record player.
Who only owns a 7-inch turntable?
I don't have much space downstairs, and it's almost like a dance set kind of thing, but it does play.
Because
But it does play 12 inches.
12 inches takes up too much room, does it?
Well, it's 5 more inches, man. So anyway, I at least I supported Tim's Twitter listening party, and it goes to a good cause as well. But what an idiot! What an idiot!
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to put.
Oh,
Oh, shit on it.
not again!
And in the corner of Chris's living room, there's a pile of 60 or 70 slip mats. I keep forgetting.
Yeah.
Just the camera just moves right, just pans right, and you
Yeah.
just see.
Sorry, pile of slip mats.
Oh,
Yeah. So
you've got a large pile of slip mats.
yeah.
Oh, not my brother, because he has.
So the reason I shouted out podcast before was because How to DJ by Chris Hawkins. So check out that podcast where he speaks to some incredible DJs, including Dave Haslam. Who else is in
there? Jam Supernova, Ashley Beadle, John Kennedy, Goldie Rocks,
Simone Marie.
Get on it. Yeah, Jam Supernova is just ace. She's ace.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great podcast, and Chris has others as well. Google them, search them, because they're fantastic. Boy, does he know his stuff. Well, time is up, mate.
Yeah.
And by that I mean I've got more Cadbury's caramel chocolate to eat.
Oh yeah, happy Father's Day for last Sunday.
Happy Father's Day. What did you get, Chris?
I got a lovely garment. I got a fashion top. Yeah, a top for fashion. And it's great. It's really good. This
is why the listeners here for this quality content.
Yeah, absolutely.
And on that note, listener, we'll see you next episode. Wowzers.
See you next time. Bye.
Oh, that slip mat is brilliant.